Yeah, you're
How
right.
we
It
doing?
was a very disheartening performance by the Knicks last night.
brutal last
and
night.
I didn't stay up and watch the whole thing. I watched the first quarter, and
All you needed to see.
I mean, it was brutal, and it was like they didn't have an interest in playing in the game. And again, much like I was talking about the Rangers the other day, there are going to be games like this during a long season. And this was the or part of the schedule here, where the Knicks are playing a lot of the also-rans in the NBA. And if you're not going to bring it every night, all of a sudden somebody can get hot. I don't know how to pronounce the kid's name. I know
Mamukelashvili.
Yeah, that kid is from Seton Hall.
Yeah, well,
I remember him.
You had Champagne from St. John's last night. You had Castle from UConn.
Yeah.
And Mamukelashvili from Seton Hall doing the Knicks last night.
It was amazing. And that kid didn't miss.
No.
I mean, it was ridiculous.
13 of 14 for the game, 7 of 7 from 3.
It's ridiculous. So, obviously, a defensive issue, once again, I would say, but also a hot sixth man, if you will.
No doubt, but I think what you just said is dead on, because if you watch this game, and I do believe I know the Knicks made a little bit of a run. They were down by. You can make runs in the NBA, but if you're on the road and you're going to go down by 30,
But
it is really hard to get all the way back.
If you give up over 60 points in the first half,
it's really hard to come back from that.
I mean, and the Knicks should be known for defense. They do have defensive players. They were talking about, Deuce McBride and how much of a better defender he is because of the way that they change things around when Jalen Brunson's not playing. Well, that certainly didn't show itself last night.
Well,
and this is no Wembanyama playing. And it was again, it's kind of a wake-up call. I mean, yesterday I went off on the Rangers, and rightfully so. It was an embarrassing performance at home in front of their fans. And, I was saying that, the coach has got to be fired. Well, the coach has got to be fired at the end of the season. If, with these last 13 games to go, he can't get them into the playoffs. If he can't get them into the playoffs, that means his message is not resonating with the star players, and the star players who make all the money on the team have basically gone flat. So that to me is an indication that the coach has got to go. I hate calling for coaches' jobs, but the reality is that, okay, you are staying with them, or you stayed with them through the season. You stayed through them through a horrendous December, and here you are now. And if this team doesn't get out of a funk in the last 13 games here, then he's got to go. And who knows, maybe the front office has got to go with him because the things aren't working. Something's not working there. That's not the same with the Knicks. The Knicks are a completely different set of circumstances, but their performance last night was I would call it withering, is how I would put it, and what it looked like. And then coming in and watching the rest of the kind of the strong highlights about how many open shots.
Oh, man.
And it's what drives you crazy when you watch a Knick game.
That's exactly what I wrote down, which is what I was going to get into, because, for years, this team, especially last year, too, I think you enjoyed watching them because of the grit and the defense. We talked about it all season long. And, I really do feel like I've been one here that has given them the benefit of the doubt, that I do believe when they have to, they're going to start playing defense. But the more and more they do this, you're right. The amount, as San Antonio is building, I said 30, but I think the actual number was 28 was the biggest lead last night on a couple of occasions. As they're building that lead, Boomer, it was, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt from this standpoint, too, before I continue what I'm going to say. The schedule is stupid. The fact that they were away for a week and a half, fly home, play a game, go right back on the road, stupid. But that having been said,
it's all chartered, though, too,
I know
Jerry.
it is.
I mean, they're catered to, like you.
You're still flying. You always talk about sleeping in your own bed, the difference for an NFL team being home or away. So there is something to it, but I agree. They're treated wonderfully. I get that. But the schedule was stupid. And then you go back there and you play a game and you looked disinterested. And I start to wonder, as it's now towards the end of March, is this team capable of playing defense? Now, there's no Jalen Brunson, and you got to take that into account, too. He is their best player. He's their captain for a reason, and he's not there. But that doesn't mean the guys you brought in to play defense can't play defense. And last night, it looked like they weren't interested.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing. It's a back-to-back, and they got to go to Charlotte. And Charlotte
they should win tonight.
And Charlotte stinks, too. So, you can wipe away that awful feeling and win a game tonight, as the Rangers are playing Toronto tonight, who's coming off of a very tough win against the Colorado Avalanche. So now they're on a back-to-back tonight. And, both of these teams, they got to win these games. I mean, I guess, the Knicks are going to hang around in the third spot. It looks like Indiana,
Indiana's
jumped over.
within 4 now.
Well, yeah, and they jumped over Milwaukee. Milwaukee last week was in 4, and they lost 2. Indiana's won a few games. So now they've jumped over Milwaukee. So it's going to be an interesting finish the way these things play out from 3 all the way to the play-in games.
For sure.
And what I think is, and let's be realistic about what we just witnessed in the last 2 Knick games. You played against the Miami Heat, who had a horrendous shooting night, and the Knicks won. You played against the San Antonio Spurs without Wembanyama, who had a great shooting night, specifically one player who couldn't miss because he was wide open most of the time. So how many wide open shots did the Miami Heat miss?
A lot.
And that's really what I'm telling you. With this team, if they don't start playing better perimeter defense.
But what do you think it is?
And again, I know. There are Knicks fans out there. Oh, Boomer's negative again about the Knicks. I'm like, how the F do you wake up this morning and you watch this last night, and what you saw is exactly the same thing you saw against the team that you played previously. But the team previously was throwing up bricks at Madison Square Garden.
All true.
And last night, that's not what the situation was with the Spurs. Again, but there's one similarity: wide open 3-point shots. How many times you have to hit somebody over the head before they start to understand that this is a part of the game that is such a big part of the game now? And this is why the reality is, if they play defense like this and they play the Boston Celtics, if they get to the second round, they're going to get murdered.
If this is how they're going to play defense, they will have no chance.
And I don't know if you could just, I guess you could take it up another level. We all know that the playoffs are more intense, which we all appreciate.
The concern I would have, though, is as this continues to go on and they don't show it to you, you really do wonder, can they turn it on? Because it's not easy. And, I know Karl Anthony Towns is here, so it is a little bit of a different team. I think he's wonderful offensively. You saw it last night. He started 5 for 5 or something, scored their first 12 or 13 points or 10 points, whatever it was. But defensively, is it really the absence of Isaiah Hartenstein and Dante DiVincenzo? I mean, is this really why?
Hartenstein was he was a heart and soul guy, Jerry.
I know, but
you're like our heart and soul guy. When you're not here and we're not whole and we're missing you, people feel it. Not that they don't like CeeLo. A lot of people like CeeLo. But CeeLo, it's like he's not Hartenstein. You are.
Okay, that's very nice of you to say.
You are a heart and soul guy through and through, and heart and soul guys are important to have on the team. And I think Josh Hart's one of these heart and soul guys. And I do think that the team is it's a likable team, but the difference between this year and last year
something's off.
Are the moves that they made in the offseason to take them to another level. Now, this level is not going to be the level of the Boston Celtics or the Cleveland Cavaliers at the moment. And I don't know if you can just turn it on. I don't know if you can. And listening to Jalen and Josh do their podcast, they keep talking about, we're still learning each other. We're still learning how to play. We're still learning.
March 20th.
That's right. And we are now in the bottom third or the last third of the season, and they're playing some really bad teams here. And last night's performance, like I said, in a long season is going to happen.
What's interesting is
the difference between them and the Rangers, by the way. The Rangers should be desperate to get into the playoffs, and they've played a couple games like it, and then they've had some really bad games. And this game against Calgary the other night, the more you read about it, the more you hear about it, the more disgusted you become with it. But this game last night, the Knicks are comfortably in a playoff spot,
sure.
And they're going to make it. And they're going to be judged not by their regular season. They're going to be judged by how deep they go into the playoffs.
Right. Well, we were talking about body of work yesterday. I forget why, but we were talking about
body of work?
Yeah, we were. And because we were talking about Sam Darnold, and we were talking about, the first 16 games of the season compared to his last 2.
He was in the MVP race.
Exactly. And the Knicks' body of work, they are, when you look at them, they're still 17, 18, 19 games over 500. They've had a good season. The problem is it doesn't feel like it. And when you see Boston and Cleveland and Oklahoma City playing the way they're playing, it feels almost like it's just we're racing to the postseason for them to get bounced. Here's my question, though. When you watch this team, the changes that they made, yes, they lacked a little bit on defense, though they got Mikal Bridges, and that has been okay, I guess. What happened to the team that was putting up 140 points a night? A team that could score 130. The last couple of games, the ball ain't going in as much.
I think that's Jalen Brunson. I think, on offense, Jalen Brunson is a facilitator and a scorer. And he is, for his size, I would have to say pound for pound, one of the best players in that situation. His lapses are on defense, and he gets overwhelmed by guys that are taller than him. And also, let's face it, I don't necessarily know that Mikal Bridges is as good a defender as we thought he was going to be and was supposed to be, and supposed to be a two-way player like OG Anunoby. And you're supposed to have two of those guys that are able to shut down the best players on the other team. Like, in other words, the wing players or whoever has the basketball, you could put one of those guys on that guy, and they are supposed to be able to shut them down, at least mitigate some of the impact that those players have on the Knicks team. But I would just say that the defense has been lacking all year long, and they say they're not connected defensively. But the thing that I don't understand is how you can be connected offensively but not be connected defensively.
It's the communication. To me, defense is more about communication than offense is. And
you know, I think defense is about heart and hustle.
It is for sure. And I think Josh Hart gives you a lot of that. But here's the one thing that I would also point out from last night, and you're dead on. When you talk about the open threes, there were a million of them.
God.
Mamoukelashvili hit his 7. But the one thing about last night, too, and you see there, almost pushed around on the interior. Like,
are you saying they're soft?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not saying that.
That word has been thrown around about this.
I'm
being soft.
No, I'm speaking specifically about last night and last night only. The outside shooting by San Antonio was on target. It's really what allowed them to build the lead and get out on the lead. And you know what the kid did off the bench was remarkable. But how about 40-year-old Chris Paul running around in circles and ending up with these short little 5-foot jump shots? Like, there was just no resistance whatsoever. And I know that this team is more offensive now, but it just doesn't even resemble a lick of what they were last season.
It may have something to do with the travel and the scheduling and all that. It may, and that may just be one of those throwaway games. And hopefully, Tibbs tonight is going to be on their ass and tell them to take it up another notch. I mean, again, you know, ultimately it always comes back to the players. I mean, we can scream about the coaches all we want. You scream about coaches when you feel like they're letting players get away with certain things that you see over and over again, either on the ice, the court, the field, whatever it is.
Do you see that with the Knicks?
What I see is everybody wanting to score and nobody wanting to prevent anybody to score. And I can't dig in enough to tell you that it's just defense is hustle and caring. You know, I go back to Rick Pitino at halftime of one of those games that he had his halftime speech, and he was talking about, you know, when you miss a shot on offense, that doesn't mean you can't goddamn get back on defense. Life is full of adversity.
It's true.
And he's screaming at those kids, and those kids reacted to him. And I'm not saying you're going to scream at professional basketball players because they're all so sensitive. They make so much money, and they have so many people in their ears telling them how great they are, and you know, and you know, don't. The agents, the whole thing, you know, the whole kind of drama that you're dealing with. So it's a long season, and I think that if they can get through the regular season in the 3 spot, be healthy, then I think Tibbs is going to have to raise the intensity level significantly. And that intensity level, we need to see it on the defensive end of the court as well as the offensive end. I mean, the offensive end we've seen. And especially when Jalen Brunson is in there, he can get any shot he wants. He can facilitate. He's a great ball handler. He's smart with the basketball, and he gets open shots for his teammates. Problem, when they play really good teams, his teammates start shooting pretty poorly. That's another thing. And I don't know if it's because of the way other teams play them defensively or not, but the one thing that has been consistent throughout this year, this defense has been below expectations.
Far below. Below
expectations.
I would love to know if you asked Tibbs, like in a private moment, what is the issue with this team? I wonder who he would go off on. Because I don't know that it's collective. I don't know that it's not. He might be upset with the entire group. He could be pissed off at one or two guys that maybe their lack of effort or the way they play kind of permeates throughout everybody.
You know, if you get a chance, because, you know, they'll be back on the East Coast tonight, watch the Knicks and watch their defense and see if they raise the level of defense against another poor team. Or is it just that the poor team has a poor shooting night, like Miami had the other night? They just had a poor shooting night. They had the wide open threes. They couldn't hit anything. Now, last night, wide open threes, they were hitting things.
And 50% for the game.
That's why the game stinks.
As a team.
That's why the overall game stinks.
I agree.
It's brutal.
When it's played well, it's a great game to watch, and when it's played, it's almost lazy.
You know where it's played well? It's played well in the NCAA tournament because guys are going 100 miles an hour. It's 40 minutes of fury. and they don't play 82 games. That they're lucky if they play 40 games.
Right. Well, you play 40, that means you're probably standing there with the trophy.
Exactly. So, and they lay it all on the line, especially some of these teams at the top of these brackets. The more you look at them, the more you realize, man, you got to hope like in the Elite Eight that the best teams get there. Although I'm rooting for a couple of underdogs, I'd like to see the best teams get there because these teams are so intense, every single one of them, that the Elite Eight and the Final Four could be magical with these teams, how close they are and how good they are and the coaches that are coaching them and how good those coaches are.